What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I had the privilege to speak to Jen Looper. Jen is a cloud advocate lead at Microsoft. I had to do this because I keep thinking about avocados and it's not the easiest thing to say. But next to not being easy to say, it's a great title to have, right? So, in this interview, we talk about how Jen landed her job at Microsoft, but also about how she came up in the first bubble of the internet, about how she started Vue Vixens, now called Front-End Foxes, to include women into technology, and a whole bunch of other things. We've had a super wide-ranging conversation, and I enjoyed it a lot. So, without further ado, this is the interview with Jen Looper from Microsoft. Let's do this.
Yay.
All right. Hey, Jen. Welcome
Hey.
to the channel. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. How's it going?
I'm all good. Staying inside, staying safe.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's kick this off. So I tend to start those interviews by asking people about their cultures or differences in culture and stuff like that. And I always ask them to say their name the way it's supposed to be said, but I guess for yours it sounds kind of English, so we're kind of fine there. But let me go on it a different way, because when I met you a while back, you actually did this super cool, I think it was like a sonnet or maybe a poem in French during a conference.
Probably.
So your French is really good, but you're American. So what's the story here?
Yeah, that's a funny thing about my weird existence. I when I was 16, I went to France on an exchange, and I never really recovered. So,
Oh yeah, as many do.
right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't Paris. I went to the countryside. So I was in Vendôme, and then I went to Blois, actually Blois and then Vendôme. And so it was really, La France profonde. It was like deep France, and just kind of fell in love. Really I still am very good friends with my host family. So, which is really, really long time ago.
Yeah.
And it was really changed my life. I wanted to become a French teacher, and I went all the way through school with that assumption that I was going to go ahead and teach French. And I have a PhD in French literature,
Wow.
very specific. Yeah, it's very specific because I was
Yeah.
really interested in the Middle Ages. So if you're, looking in La France profonde, in deep France, you're going to stumble across a lot of little Romanesque churches. And we did just touring and touring and touring. And it was really a very special occasion in my life. You have these kind of spiritual experiences in cathedrals, and I wanted to be a medievalist, so that's what I trained to do. And unfortunately, it's not so easy to get a job as a French medieval scholar in the US,
I
especially,
think anywhere,
yeah,
right?
especially as an American.
Mm. Oh yeah,
So
sure.
yeah, yeah. So there's a couple biases there, but one of the problems was I was on the market in the kind of tail end of the dot-com boom when it
Mm.
was going towards bust, and the universities were discovering adjuncting. So they weren't hiring tenure track, they were hiring adjuncts. So I adjuncted at Wellesley College and Regis, and I found out I couldn't pay my childcare. It was paid so poorly. It was $1,500 a semester teaching every day French.
Wow.
It was really poorly paid.
Yeah,
And
that's a
I was just like,
challenge.
this is ridiculous. Like, this is not worth it. So,
Because you've studied so
um,
hard, you know so much, you have so much in-depth knowledge that you can share, and it's not
yeah.
really valuable almost.
And you're still just you're teaching French language. What you really want to be doing is teaching French literature on a tenure track basis, but
Mm.
it just
Yeah.
wasn't a possibility at the time. So that's okay. And I was lucky. I retrained and had to start from ground zero. I thought I would go into technical writing because that seemed like a more normal thing. That wasn't really an option. I didn't find many opportunities there. I thought maybe design. Turns out I'm not that great at design. So, but I was lucky, and I just got into a startup at the tail end of the dot-com boom, when like a monkey who could do HTML could get a job. Like, it was that, like, and I was that level, I could do a little HTML, CSS.
Yeah, I actually remember back in the day, I think I started working in like 2007 or something like that, but the company where I worked just before that, during the 90s and up, they were teaching HTML kind of for dummies and
Yeah,
making the big bucks. It was crazy.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah. It was a
that
big
was a
deal.
pretty interesting time, right?
Yeah, it was, and I'm grateful actually to Macromedia University. There's a blast from the past. So they had kind of
Macromedia,
distance.
I know that name.
right? Yes,
Yes,
Flash,
I'm
Flash.
old enough to know.
Yes, and they had really good courseware online, so I just kind of skilled up using kind of writing the Macromedia Adobe stack, which was, big at that time.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I mean, I did Cold Fusion for years, paid the
Wow.
bills. I
Yeah,
know, right?
I came after that. I think I did ActionScript 1.
Yep,
This
yep.
kind of stuff came in, and then I had a brief moment where I stopped being. I went to nursing school, and then
Oh,
in between doing that and going to work as something more creative, I decided, you know what, maybe I should go to school for just a bit, or at
uh-huh.
least, well, not for a bit. It ended up to be only a little bit, but they were teaching web technology in ActionScript because it was really easy to understand.
Mhm.
But even at that time, nobody used it.
Were you doing things in Flash with the
Yes,
ActionScript or?
yes.
Yeah, I miss Flash. I thought
It was a
I
nice
don't
platform to just do stuff quickly, right? It was
yeah,
a nice ecosystem. I understand that it was there.
yeah.
So let's jump on the next part a little bit because we now covered that you are doing some technology stuff. But I can imagine not that many women were doing it at that time, right? How
Yeah,
did that feel? What happened there? Did that work
yeah.
for you or?
I have this nagging feeling that I was hired because I was cheaper,
Oh
but
no, it's one of
maybe
those.
I don't know. I don't know. I never could prove that. But the big difference for me was that I'm in Boston. So
Mm,
Boston is not Silicon Valley. Like all the horror stories you're going to hear are kind of out of Silicon Valley and some of the
okay.
bigger tech ecosystems. So in Boston, it was kind of like if you could show that you had skills, you're hireable. So I think it was a little bit less bias driven. And not only was I in Boston, I was in the Boston suburbs.
Hmm.
So I live in the Metro West. So there's even a smaller pool of people who can do this stuff. So it's like, you walk in the door, thank God. And if you can show that you can do something, you're hired. And people are willing to allow you to skill up on the job, at least at that point, because everything moves so fast. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I really think I had a bit easier time. And the other thing that made a difference was I was a young mom at the time. So I had my first daughter in 97, my second in 2000. So it was just like nobody's gonna bother a young mom. Like you're too busy.
Ah,
You're going home
yeah.
at 5.
So how did
There's
you juggle that at that time? Like two
yeah,
kids is kind of a lot, and we all know this job is demanding. Like if I if I didn't stop myself, I would work 24 hours. So how
yeah,
did you
yeah,
do that?
and we still do, right? So,
Yeah, we still
I
do.
think
This is true.
yeah, I did do a lot of midnight burning of, burning oil or however you say it. But I was lucky. My husband was supportive. He's a professor at MIT.
Ah,
So
cool.
he had that kind of stable job and he was always very encouraging, very supportive. And then I always tried to negotiate some kind of work from home. What I would do, I had a sneaky way of negotiating. I would say, I'll forego healthcare because it's covered by my husband, but they didn't
Ah,
need to know
yeah,
that.
they didn't need to
So
know.
forego healthcare if you give me a day that I can work from home. So it's like I was always trying to negotiate and
Yeah.
find some kind of trade off, and that usually worked, so that you could have at least like Wednesday working from home. That used to be my system.
Oh, that's cool. So you just worked around it basically.
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. Tried to get the kids into a Montessori school. We were lucky we found a Montessori school that took babies, which is kind of unusual.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, because normally they start at 2.9, and yeah, it's just a question of finding systems that work and just having a supportive partner, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge one. So the first time I saw you speak on a conference, I think it was in Amsterdam, and they announced you as part of Vue Vixens back then.
Yeah,
And when I
yeah,
saw that, it's like, wow, this is so cool. There's like someone standing up for people who might not be even close to development or being a woman and not even getting in stuff. So I think it's a really cool thing to do. Saying this as a guy, I don't want to be biased or anything. I think it's just a really cool initiative to make everything inclusive, right? So, why did you feel like you had to start this, and why you?
yeah, great question. I'm actually coming out of the Angular community.
Ah,
So,
yes,
yeah, so I was before I did Vue, I was coming out of even Angular 1 and then
I dropped
watching
off
Angular 2
after the
develop, which
first
is really
one, to be honest.
yeah, yeah. A lot of Angular 1 people found their way into Vue because there's some similarities there or
Yes,
feels a little more similar.
yeah, the directive
Yeah,
stuff and Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it feels good. The Angular 2 stuff, that it's like a completely different beast, but I
Yeah.
was working at Progress on the native script stuff, so we had to get out to Angular 2. But Angular is really cool because it has a nice community, and they always had NG girls,
Okay.
which
Yeah,
was
I know.
started by my colleague Shmuela. We're all at Microsoft now. It's like all of these
Oh, this
founders
is
are here.
cool.
Yeah, so she's in Israel, and I remember she announced NG girls on stage at NG Conf in when was that? Several, at least 5 years ago.
Mm.
Yeah, and maybe 2016 or something. And um, she really impressed me as somebody who's starting something because she felt there's a need for something. And then I started participating in NG Girls. I led the Paris cohort once when at NG Europe. Um, and I joined the Vue community because of what I was doing at work. And I realized, there's no such thing in the Vue community as of yet. Let's start it. So
Yeah.
I
Why
just felt
not?
like may as well, right? And I always like these kind of initiatives because I went to a women's college. I went to Wellesley. So for me, it's kind of a natural thing to just found something like this and kind of build community. And it's been 2 years of ups and downs. It's been kind of a wild ride, and we are rebranding now to become Front End Foxes because we are
Yes.
finding that we can kind of expand into the React space, which also doesn't have, well, it has React Girls, and they just did the Women of React conference, which was amazing. They did a great job,
Okay.
and but they don't have this kind of like a workshop model yet, like which is what we borrowed from NG Girls, and I think they borrowed it from Django Girls. So there's a whole
Oh, there's this
genealogy.
whole chain of stuff.
All chain. Yep, yep, yep.
I like it.
And yeah, and for us, we found that our way was kind of paved by Women Who Code, which is yet another, really big group.
Yeah.
So lots and lots of initiatives out there. We just thought, let's do something for Vue because
Okay.
why not?
Just scope it so people can actually see. Because
Yeah.
there's this kind of funny story that well, it's not super funny, but let's see, the coincidence is there. So like my wife is not that healthy, so she has some chronic issues, and now during the pandemic she can actually not go back to work because she cannot really, like, she used to be a nanny, so she cannot be close to kids anymore.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
she's like, yeah, but I've always wanted to do like some code and trying out. And she has her own company with like a Shopify shop. She wants to customize. So she's been learning. And then one time she comes to me like, there's this Vue Vixens thing. And you know what? I love this. And I
Oh,
think your friend Maria is in it. And I just want to join it. And
yeah,
that is so much fun to see that it spreads and people actually feel like they want to belong somewhere. And I think
yeah.
that if you started something like that, that's a big up for you. I think that's great.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, let her hop into our Slack channel
She is. I
and
think she's
oh, she
there.
is.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty quiet right now. The pandemic has really been tough on groups like ours because we built our model on in-person events, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So we're trying to figure out what does Vue Vixens look like? What does Front End Foxes look like during a pandemic? It's like, and I don't. We have a Zoom account and we've done a couple online events. I
Yeah.
taught at Audit School recently in France,
Ah,
so
yeah, cool.
yeah. So we're just seeing kind of trying to figure out what works. And all of our stuff is always online anyway,
Yeah,
always
exactly.
free and open source. So we have a new workshop we just published from the girls from Hamburg, our German chapter, who are very active. They have a new workshop on Harry Potter. It's like a Harry Potter quiz app that you can create. So
Oh,
that's
that
available.
sounds cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's new.
the data from those books is always fun for teaching, right?
Yes, absolutely. Super fun.
So I guess you're doing a lot of advocacy for coding and for being together and doing that kind of stuff. And now you actually do that for Microsoft,
Yep,
right?
yep,
So
yep.
how did you get there? Like, I think a lot of front end people or like-minded people are kind of aspiring to work for a company like that. But you also do stuff for Google. So how did that happen? How did you get there?
Yeah, well, I was really lucky to have been mentored by Sarah Drasner, who was
Okay.
at Microsoft at the time, and
Yeah.
I credit her with just helping me negotiate the labyrinth of getting into a big company,
Yeah.
which like in Google, the interview process is a whole thing, and you really need to be coached through it.
Yes.
Same thing with Microsoft. It was like 5 interviews, bang, 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 and I was up for a lead position, so I was going to be leading the regional team at Microsoft, and I did for about a half a year before we folded it. So I was managing Canada, US, and Latin American advocates. We folded that because that was a model that didn't work so great for us, and now I'm part of the academic team. So it works well for me. It's all advocacy, but for a different demographic. For me, I'm taking care of the kind of K through 12 and college kids.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it was actually a goal of yours to go into something like this, or did it just come on your path? Because before you were producing software, right?
Yeah. So I was an engineer for 20 years in all different tech stacks, mostly closed source, which is actually something to avoid. And I started moonlighting doing mobile app development using Corona SDK and got into the kind of the advocacy role there because I just started blogging about it.
Mm.
And my friend Brian, who was a Boston guy at the time, he got me into Telerik for my first developer relations job about 6 years ago. And Telerik was acquired by Progress, and Progress and Telerik all worked together to create NativeScript, and that was kind of my product for about 2
Exactly. I've
years.
seen you talk about that. Exactly.
Yeah. So NativeScript is a great, great product, all open source, and a beautiful Vue integration done by Igor. Absolutely stunning. So that was a real pleasure to talk about because I love mobile apps.
Yes,
Um,
sure.
Yeah, so then at Microsoft, it's just a question of joining a really huge department in developer relations. I think there's 130 of us. It's an
Wow.
enormous department. Yeah, it's big.
So did
And
they
just kind of
always have that, or did they pivot towards this?
they had a department called DX, Developer Experience, and that kind of morphed into developer relations as the whole kind of ecosystem of DevRel has changed. They've just developed, they basically hired a lot of really amazing advocates to join this kind of huge department. And we're just kind of figuring out, what does developer advocacy look like nowadays? I think it's going to be a lot of content creation, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
So
nowadays it's gonna morph a little bit, I guess.
yeah, fewer events, a lot fewer events. Although online stuff, I still think that we can certainly do online events without any, it's budget neutral, as we say.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Well, it's your time, clearly.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's probably
Yeah.
worth a lot, I can imagine. Is this kind
Yeah.
of... Sorry, go on.
So I was going to say, I mean, it's all part of the job. You're talking to the community and you're trying to advocate. You're not selling. You're just trying to figure out what people are interested in and what they're looking for.
Yeah, but I can also imagine that a secondary goal is to have Microsoft there in the background and then you representing them. So it's great for Microsoft also. So it's always this kind
Hope
of
so.
stuff going on. Yeah,
Hope
that's
I-
kind of the point.
Yeah.
Like marketing by association, because you are great with the audience, let's say.
Yeah, it gives try to give credibility and try to bring the brand into communities that might not necessarily have thought about using Microsoft products before, especially front-end communities. So there's quite a few front-enders in our department, like Wasim, Chaigam, Shmuela, a lot of really super people. And I manage 6 really amazing advocates who are interested in all different areas of academic advocacy.
Oh yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah, so it's a really great place to be. It's a terrific department. My group is terrific. So I'm just grateful because it's been a long road.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, as an advocate, you kind of have to speak quite often, right? So, were you speaking at conferences before, or did you roll into speaking this way via advocacy?
I think the first conference talk I gave was at a Progress event. So it was an internal conference that we were doing, and kind of, you cut your teeth and you figure out what works for you. My colleague Brian Rinaldi he's a very good conference organizer and he's a very good coach about speaking. So we kind of looked at slides and kind of coach you through it.
Oh, cool.
And then it was just a question of CFPs and trying to get some speaking slots. When you're working in a big company as an advocate, a lot of times there's a sponsorship involved. So then you have a slot, available to you.
This is a good question. How do you feel about that? Because that's a hard one, right?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I would rather earn a slot,
exactly.
But if you've got a slot available specific to a sponsor, I think as long as you're open that it's a sponsored slot, then that's okay. It's not like you want to go in and pretend that,
you won the CFP.
Fell into your lap, by magic.
Yeah.
So I think at some conferences, I want to say that one conference I went to in Nashville, it was like specifically delineated this as a sponsored talk.
Hmm.
And then you don't feel bad about speaking about product as
No,
well,
but
right?
then you just go product first. It's all good, right?
Yeah, yeah. So at that point, that's fine. But very few conferences really want a billboard, you know. So you
No,
kind of
exactly. It's
it's a
kind of a mix. Yeah.
delicate balance.
Because for
Yeah,
me now, my job is it like I'm the director of front end stuff at a pretty big company, and but we're not really known for front end. So now my thing is like I'm just going to speak at conferences and do content creation, so they know I belong there. And then, but I also always sponsor. But I
yeah,
don't want to get a sponsor slot because then I'm buying my way into knowing my company that we can do front end. So that's kind of it's a bit tricky for me. I tend to say
yeah.
no for sponsor talk.
Yeah, I think that's gonna all change. Everything's gonna change anyway.
Sure.
I mean, for the online stuff, people are still gonna be having sponsorships, but um, at this point, I'm finding I'm not doing really CFPs. I'm just being invited. So that's
Yeah,
really
it's a nice place to be, right?
it's a nice place to be. I'm just kind of grateful, and I'm not really worrying too much about speaking because I have so much other stuff to do.
Yeah.
So if they want something, I'll talk about a passion project that I'm doing. There'll probably be some little tie-in to a Microsoft thing, but I'm not going to beat people over the head with it, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. I love the cocktail one you did a while back.
Ah,
That was a good one. That was good for the crowd also. That was good
well,
fun.
yes, I was happy to be able to serve a drink to my friend from the stage. That was
Yeah,
like
exactly.
great moment of my career, you know?
So, when you look at like, let's say your Twitter feed or your online profile and all your different things you do, everything looks so good. It's so polished. You do so well. But to get there, there must be some sort of challenges along the way because the best way we learn is through some challenges, right? So, do
Mhm.
you have maybe a story, if you want, that was challenging that actually made you much better at what you do, or maybe on how you feel about what you're doing?
Yeah, well, the problem with Twitter is you can't edit a tweet. The good thing about
Exactly.
Twitter is you can delete a tweet.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
and this is pretty recent actually. I put up a poll asking for some ideas about conference swag, and you know, in a Twitter poll, you can only have like 3 or 4
Yeah.
options, and then people can either vote or they can add whatever they want at the bottom. And it turned out that the options I was offering were not considered inclusive by some folks,
Oh,
and
okay.
and I had no idea. Yeah, so I basically apologized, to the community, reached out to the person who mentioned this to me, a couple people, and then just deleted the tweet.
Yeah.
But it was a huge learning moment for me because Twitter is a risky business. You've got an awful lot of people looking at what you say.
I have so felt this lately. This is
Oh,
crazy, right?
golly.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it I don't know if it's worse now or it's just you
I
gotta
feel like maybe between the continents, it's still quite different. I think in the US and Canada especially, it's a lot about inclusion
yeah.
or inclusiveness, and in Europe, it's I don't know. I did something similar. What I did is I made a video, one of my first videos on YouTube, where I made a little joke about like being a dude, kind of like a bro grammar, something like this. But
Yeah.
back in the day in Amsterdam, we were just guys going to the gym, having fun, making music, but also programming. There was nothing American bro about this, which is, I guess, not a good thing.
Uh,
Wow,
yeah.
the stuff I got on my. I actually wrote a pre written answer for everybody.
Oh,
And so I've
wow.
learned, but I left it on and I apologized the next video and I actually left it on because no women were upset with me. It was only men who thought women would be upset and who were
Uh,
defending the women who could defend themselves without a problem. It was
interesting.
such a strange vibe to be in.
Yeah.
But it was
This
my
is
mistake. You have to learn,
yeah,
and it spreads like wildfire,
it
especially Twitter,
does.
right? Yeah.
And if you get sideways of communities, it can be really, really damaging. It can
Okay.
hurt. Like the ripple effects can be kind of terrible, and so you just have to be extremely careful
Yeah.
online. It's a very public platform, and you know when you got a certain number of followers, it just ripples out to people you have no idea. So
So do
just be
you
super
curate
careful.
much more now? What do you do?
Yeah,
Also,
I'm
like
doing a lot.
events you go to that might have different newsworthy things and stuff like that.
Um, I'm just a little bit more careful, especially because in our department, we're very, very sensitive towards these issues. And we have like one of the top OKRs in our
Mm.
org is
Oh
inclusivity.
wow, that's actually pretty cool,
D&I,
isn't it?
D&I is enormous. Yeah, Satya, the CEO of Microsoft, is huge, huge, huge advocate
Mm.
for D&I. So it's such an important thing
Yeah.
that you just don't want to get sideways of anyone. So you just
Yeah, and
curate.
if you just take it off 1%, but you do that for 3 months, you're suddenly gone. You're no longer in that community, right? So it's a complex
That's
issue, I guess.
that's true. Yeah,
So let's go to something a bit lighter.
sure.
Do you have something that you are like super good at, or you think you're almost an expert at, or some whatever that nobody else knows about? Like your kids probably know, but not us here in the community of web developers.
Well, I wouldn't say expert at. I like to do a lot of things. I like to draw and paint, and I love to do old-fashioned crafts, and I
Mm.
like to sew clothing, and I like to make jewelry, and I like to try my hand at all sorts of crafts. I used to be really good at violin. I used to be quite a good
Oh,
violinist,
wow.
but I picked my poor violin up recently, and it turns out you have to practice to stay.
Yes.
Oh man,
Being
it
someone
was.
who plays a string instrument, that's actually easier than a violin. I
Oh,
concur.
yes. So so I was like, okay, I'm gonna like make it a goal. I'm gonna try to join the Wellesley Symphony.
Oh,
Um, but I just don't know if I don't. I would have to put in about an hour a day just practicing and practicing. I probably need to get a teacher again. And unfortunately for me, I did have a teacher
mm.
who was 92 and he died.
Oh
So-
no.
but it was interesting because he was the foremost Boston practitioner of Arabic style violin, which is a completely different beast than the classical violin.
Well,
But
I
I really
guess the
wanted to.
fingering is amazing, right?
Well, it has half tones.
Exactly.
So we're very used to the straight tones and you know
Yeah.
exactly what you're looking for where your fingers are, but
Yeah.
you go a little bit back and then that's a perfectly proper Arabic halftone, but it sounds super weird to our Western tuned ear.
Yeah.
So I really regret that I couldn't keep studying with Fred. I would drive up to New Hampshire, and we'd have a nice afternoon. And he liked me because I was classically trained, and
Okay.
I
Okay.
liked him because he was too. He went to Boston Conservatory. Um, and the Arabic music scene in Boston took a hit when he passed.
Oh wow. So
So
proper influencer, but like the real deal influencer,
the real
right?
deal. He was
Yeah.
American Lebanese. He came up in the Las Vegas system in the 60s. Can you imagine? And I was like,
Wow.
Fred, you've got to write a memoir. The
Yeah,
people
that
you've
sounds
met,
like he needs a book.
like the Arabic Rat Pack, it was like, oh, so that's gone. So
Yeah.
that's a regret. But I like to say I used to be quite a decent violinist, and I'm missing a teacher right now. So anybody, any of your listeners out there, if you know a good teacher, maybe I should be connected.
What I think, you are likely still pretty good, but because you're classically trained, you don't have that DNA in you to actually realize you're actually pretty dang good. I think.
I
That's
think I need to
generally
like
like that.
pick up a repertoire and just like hit it
Probably,
again.
if you just practice now for an hour a day for a month, you're close to 80% of what you were able to do.
I think so, and I need to get like a practice regimen because I can run through Brandenburg concertos and try to remember, but oof,
That's pretty challenging on its
I don't
own.
know. Start maybe simpler. Go back to
Yeah,
Suzuki, Vivaldi.
yeah, well, exactly. Like, there's so many things. Like, I have all the time those people that actually see me play guitar and like, whoa, you have all this technique. And actually, I don't actually care. And
Yeah,
people think technique is what makes you good, but it's the feeling, it's the timing.
it's the feeling.
And
It's the feeling.
if you're happy doing it, like if I go on stage now and I smile and I play bad stuff, people are fine with that because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
happy
yeah,
doing it.
yeah.
Classically, maybe that's a different story, but when you go into rock music or stuff like that, it's pretty fine.
Yeah, it's fun. I also love ancient early music. So when I was in Wellesley, I was taking lessons with the Collegium Musicum, and there is a very nice set of viola da gamba, which are the precursors to the cello.
All right.
So there's no end pin; you're holding it between your knees, and
Oh
the way
yeah,
you
I
hold
know
the bow
those.
is different. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I played lute for a while. So yeah, it's like a lot of music and a lot of way out of practice scenarios.
Oh no, but that's great to know because actually most people I interview, we kind of have this similar thing where this creative drive basically just boosts everything we do.
Oh yeah,
Right?
definitely, definitely. Yeah,
So,
I love creative coding, the concept of creative coding. I wish there was a Boston meetup and we would do creative coding. There's a fantastic New York City meetup
hmm.
for creative coders. I just love the concept of
So
just getting
would
together
that
and do.
in your case, if you think creative coding, is that just having a lot of iterations and just try stuff out that's outside of the box, or is that more like we do music-based animations, this kind of creative coding?
Yeah, I think it's more emerging on music, art, visual arts,
Mm,
and code. So trying to figure out, how you can create something creative, visually creative or artistically interesting,
yeah,
but by means of code. So
yeah.
yeah, I don't know, something to think about. Maybe we should start a Boston meetup. Hey, Boston, let's get going.
Honestly, I'd join you because I have this idea and I'm not even sure if I can do it, but I want to put a MIDI pickup on my guitar and I want to have that MIDI into my laptop or whatever, and then with an API in the browser, interpret that and then create some sort of music visually. But then by playing guitar and doing that on a stage in front of a crowd is a
Yeah.
very interesting thing, being your own VJ kind of thing. But
Oh
I
yeah.
also don't want to spend $1,000 on that. I just want to do it like simple. It needs to be accessible for others also, right? But
Yeah.
it's
Have
in
you
the
seen
back
the
of my
Magenta?
mind, yeah.
Yeah, the Magenta project by Google
Hmm?
is super interesting, and I would love to really take the time. I would love another professor I had did the entire corpus of Gregorian chant. I would love to run that through machine learning models and
Oh
see if we can create
yes.
new chant. There's like so much we can do. So I think, all right, I'm going to talk to Kirill in New York City. Maybe we can do like a pan Pacific,
Well,
pan
now that
Atlantic.
we're all on Zoom anyways,
Yes,
just do it.
we
Just
can do
there's
it.
so many meetups that are merged now.
Yep.
So almost the last question.
Okay.
So if you had a billboard that is on top of a highway that like hundreds of thousands of people a day can see, what would you write on it for them to read?
Hmm. I think I think for me personally, if I was supposed to look at it every day, it would be something like think twice.
Okay.
To be really thoughtful and not go off half cocked, but to count to 10 and think twice and make sure that everything is done in a deliberative fashion. So that goes against the kind of wildly creative instincts that I have in the right brain,
Yeah.
to just which is my propensity just to kind of do wildly creative stuff. But just like think twice and make sure you've analyzed the repercussions of things. I think that would be really good advice if that billboard is from me.
Well, I think that's a very good one actually, because a lot of people don't think twice, especially when they choose sides in politics and those kind of things, and that's kind of the place where you should. So I think it's
Yeah,
like assumptions are done so fast nowadays. I see it in my teams. I see it everywhere. So yeah, it's a great
maybe
one.
it's social media.
Oh
Social
wow.
media is just scrolling past constantly, and everyone's got those hot takes.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
No,
Yeah,
no, I don't actually read much of that stuff, to be honest. That's why I'm not on
I
Facebook
totally
at the
agree.
moment. You get in your bubble of
Yeah,
crazy, and it's like,
yeah. I'm not on Facebook too much. My high school friends are though,
ah,
so
yeah,
I'm
sure,
just going to keep up with one or two people from high school who aren't on Twitter. So
yeah,
it's like otherwise I would just kill it. But
yeah. So last one. So you go, well, maybe now not so much, but when you used to go to conferences all the time, people basically just hand out stickers left and right. What do you do with those?
Yes. Um, well, I collect a lot of stickers, and I've found that putting a sticker table out in events that I throw, like
Hmm?
I used to run the Boston Vue.js meetup, and we would just like spread the stickers out, and people can take what they want. People really like that. I do have a curated collection of stickers on my laptop, and
Okay,
I have them on a plastic like a like a tray thing that
like
you
a
clip
big
onto.
sheet or something.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard plastic,
Hmm.
like it clips right onto your laptop. So then when it's full and I'm tired of those stickers, I'll just take it off, get another one, and like keep the collection going.
Oh, that's great. So you actually organized it.
Yeah, yeah, because I was finding that I was peeling off stickers with razor blades and putting new ones on, and I'm like,
Hmm.
this is ridiculous. Let's just keep
Yeah,
that as a historical moment and
exactly.
move on, to the next one.
Oh, I'm gonna have to do something like that because I do keep them, and if I have doubles, I give them to my teammates who weren't able to go to the conference, for example. But the rest, they're all in a drawer, so I'm not gonna lose them. And some of
Yeah.
them, especially the ones from GitLab, my
Oh, yes.
wife puts them on her laptop because they look so cool.
Yeah.
But she
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
realize that it's like super nerdy stuff,
yeah.
and just to
Well, it's a
show
cute
in her
little
laptop.
box. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's super
Yeah.
fun.
Well, the big thing now is the hologram stickers. I found that those will just people go crazy for
Yeah,
hologram stickers. Sticker Mule had a sale. Oh, it was like a madhouse.
yeah. My for my wife's company, that's about dogs. She actually has a little hologram of our dog as a factor, and it
Oh,
sells. People love that stuff. So
that's
also
amazing.
from Sticker Mule. So
Yeah, Sticker
yeah.
Mule is great. Sticker App is another one that has pretty good holograms. So
Okay,
I'll give you
I'll make sure to check it out. Listen, thank you so much for your time. This is great. I
Sure.
love to
Yeah,
talk
sorry,
a
I think
bit. Sorry, go on.
the leaf blowers just started out there, so sorry about that. But
No, we I don't actually hear it, so we're good for
okay,
now. Thanks again for your time. This is great. And
sure. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate.
yeah, sure. All right, thanks. See ya. Bye.
Okay, see ya. Bye.